Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Black Iron Sigil, the latest from Paul Bantock, author of Void Admiral, in his series of A5 scale, self-published, miniature agnostic war games. Now, if you haven't watched Void Admiral, Bob and I played through a whole campaign, the Renegade Warfleets as well, which was a miniature agnostic sort of like fleet action game, so Battlefleet Gothic scale. Used a variety of ships, and if you want to see, I think, a really competently written command board driven game with lots and lots of fleets to sort of suit your miniature collection, Void Admiral's probably right up your alley. And he's back now with Black Iron Sigil, a low dark fantasy where all the elder races have been killed. Men basically exist to fight for the whims of evil sorcerers. And yeah, and you can design your own army lists, pick your own army, and play through a like roughly 50 model, probably like 30 to 50 model skirmish game. So I think about the same model count as Age of Sigmar. And it's handled roughly the same way in so much as you don't have movement trays or ranks and flanks, but you do have larger-ish units of between 6 and 12 models. So kind of the same scale as Saga, but with like very grim dark fantasy. If you were a, one of those grim sort of like hashtag 28 fans, this might be a good thing for your model collection. You could also very easily repurpose this if you have a Song of Ice and Fire model collection you're not doing much with right now. It's an age of black powder or black magic, where sorcerers bend the wicked hearts of men to toil in endless wars and mindless bloodshed. Troops fight with spears and muskets, swords and cannons, curved sacral blades and tarnished iron hammers. They fight for hunger, for desperation, they fight for vindictive pleasure, and they fight for simple hate. It's an age of unparalleled mirth, an age in which men untethered from thought or purpose do exactly as they please. So this is, like I said, this is a miniature agnostic, I'd say like company level skirmish game, set in a low fantasy setting, but you could just as easily do like a low science fiction setting as well if you want. Have like arcane gas masks. You use 40k miniatures for this if you want to. It really is up to you. So basic concepts of the game. You pick a sorcerer's path for your army. It's going to dictate what kind of magic you can use. It is low dark fantasy. All the elves, dwarves, orcs, and halflings are dead, but there are weird abominations, undead skeletons, and stuff you can summon and play with. Different types of units. There's line infantry, which are between 12 and 18 models. They have to be in base contact at all time. They are usually mounted on like between 25 and 30 mil bases. Skirmishers, 6 to 12, and they are typically also mounted on the same size base. And then cavalry on like a 40 mil base. 6 to 9. Artillery, 1 to 2 guns. Abominations, 3 to 6 large infantry, maybe on 40 mil bases. And then monsters on a 50 mil base or bigger. Players may wish to multi-base their line infantry, mounting 3 or 4 models to roughly 40 to 50 mil base. If they want to do so, they will either need some extra models to make change, or they'll need to mark their casualties with some sort of token. Easy to do. In the game table, roughly 3x4 will do, but 4x6 for larger games. Terrain, you're going to need some terrain, at least a few gnarled copses of trees, maybe a burned out farmstead, some dice, need some D6s and sometimes a D3, measuring tape in inches, some tokens. Printable tokens are on page 64, but you can almost use anything. And then fatigue tokens, which will be marked, dig-in tokens for when you take the dug-in action, aim tokens for aiming, reload tokens for when you fired already, and then spell components that you might be able to get to make your magic more effective. Every school of magic has their own way that they get spell components. Spells as turns. Well, there's 3 primary options players have for their turns. It would be noted that some of the more powerful spells will take up a player's full turn. These spells always begin with the words cast as your turn. Player turns are basically, players take turns selecting one of 3 actions. Either activate a unit, that allows you to perform an active unit. New orders allows a player to clear fatigue statuses from all their units. Or arcane channeling allows them to refresh their casting table, giving them an opportunity to spell cast. So you basically, it's very similar to the command board in Void Admiral. You're going to roll 6d6 to see what spells you have access to. And if you spend them, you pull the die off. If you want to refresh, though, you roll 1 less d6 when you refresh the board. So you have a diminishing returns on how many spells you can cast. So activating a unit, when you do so, they get to pick a unit that doesn't have a fatigue token. They can perform up to 2 actions. Then they become fatigued. The player may decide to retain the initiative if they so desire, and if they do so, they may activate a second unit. However, the second unit may only perform a single action and still become fatigued. New orders, the player can spend their turn to issue new orders. If they do so, all their units remove their fatigue tokens. And then arcane channeling. A player may spend their turn channeling arcane powers, and that allows them to refresh their casting table, but you get 1 less dice, and then they begin the game with 6 dice on the casting table. Activating units, you can move 6 inches usually, shoot, fire your guns, charge, which means rush forward. Every model that makes it in base contact can immediately make a melee attack. Aim, get an aim token, and you gain plus 4 inches to the range of your guns. If the unit moves or becomes engaged in melee, then that token's lost. And then dig in. The unit can spend their action digging in. As long as they maintain the token, they get plus 1 defense against enemy shooting attacks. Tokens lost if they move, charge, or get engaged in close combat. But it does not stack from cover. So basically, if you're going to dig in, you're going to do so where you're in the open. And then finally, dominate. Some circle zones need to be dominated for you to get a victory point. Fatigue means you can't activate again, and then retaining the initiative. After activating it, you can do so and get a single action. So it's got kind of a nice push system where you're going to decide what you want to do every turn, and sometimes you're not activating it at all, but you're clearing your board. And that means the game kind of never stops. It just goes until one size wins. So most of the scenarios will run to like a victory point total, because you may notice that there's no game turns. It's just you keep activating units until you decide you're going to do new orders and refresh everybody as an actual turn. Movement, unit currency, you got to stay in base to base. Everybody can move in subsets of their movement. They move 6 inches. And then you can move in any subsets you want. Artillery guns must be spaced an inch apart from one another. The crew must be in base contact with the guns at all times. Skirmishers and cavalry, they can have a 1-inch loose formation. And then most units move 6 in a direction of their choosing. Individual models can turn freely and don't need to keep track of their facing. You can split it into any number of smaller segments to allow you to move around obstacles. So basically you can like snake around stuff as long as you end up in base contact with a model in your unit. Cavalry can go 9, provided they don't go through any cover terrain, and this applies to movement when taking the charge action. Artillery can go 4 inches with a move action because they're slow, and then you get difficult terrain, basically doubles your movement rate because you've got to dig through like swamps or broken trees or whatever. Double moves, you may select the move action twice, and if it's done, they may add their 2 moves together, effectively doubling the distance moved. So basically, you can just do it right away as opposed to doing a second action. And then restoring lost models. If someone comes into lost, is brought back, basically to be in base contact with a friendly model from the unit that they were on the field prior to casting. Shooting guns. All right, so this is going to feel pretty. It's funny because the core mechanics of this game, move, shoot, charge, they feel fairly familiar to a 3rd edition of a certain game. Even the rolling here, when you have a firepower rating and a defense rating, you have your dice to hit. So if you're tied here, the 2 ratings, then it's a 4+, 1 better, 3+, 2 better, 2+, 3 better, 2+, but increases the shock value. The shock value for every die that exceeds the shock threshold when you roll a hit, you're going to add that to the morale check at the end of the turn once they've taken damage. And then you have to line of sight. Cover adds +1 to the base defense of somebody, so it makes it better. Some units have armor, shown as a +1 modifier. They get +1 defense unless the attack has the armor piercing special rule, which then negates their armor, and it also affects melee. Differences of greater than 3, it's considered to be 3. And then melee combat, same thing. You're going to have the same sort of table of equal, greater, or like equal, greater, 2 greater, or 3 greater, and improves your shock value. Models in base contact can make their attacks, and then your combat resolution is the differential. After the attacker resolves all their attacks, they will check to see if they can break the enemy unit. If they are unsuccessful in breaking them, they'll be forced to give ground, falling back up to 6 inches in the direction they originally came from. So you get repelled as well. They're not like compelled to move the full 6, but they have to get it separated by at least 3 inches. And so instead of using your firepower, this uses your prowess, which is your melee skill. The attacker is not immune to losses in combat, and each result of 1 they roll when attacking causes an automatic hit back on their unit. Now, the attacking unit may ignore this rule if they outnumber their opponent at least 2 to 1. So overwhelming odds can make it so that you don't take damage from 1s because you're basically like routing people. But a normal unit fight another unit, any 1s will do damage to your unit when you fight. And I do like that as opposed to having the opponent attack during the same turn. It doesn't interrupt it. It just kind of combines the attrition score into the attack roll. Morale checks are caused anytime you suffer casualties from an attack. You roll a d6 and add the casualties plus any shock notes. So like if I killed 2 guys here and at least one of my dice was a 5+, I get +1 to the morale check. And if it equals, it's added to their, basically if it's greater than morale, plus remaining models is their defense check. So they have their threshold basically. If they had 6 guys and there was 5 left, no matter morale of 3, they'd have a threshold of 8 that I'm trying to beat with casualty plus shock plus a d6 roll. If you are broken, if it exceeds it, If the attacker's result exceeds that of the defender, then the defender unit's broken by the attack. If the defender results is greater than or equal to, but they don't break, but they're subject to confusion, because basically you've been not like routed, but you're freaking out because you're being attacked. Broken units are forced to flee their enemy. They move immediately 6 inches away from the thing that caused them to break. If there's no enemy, such as a spell, they just flee backwards towards the board they're deployed on. Once units moved, they immediately gain a fatigue token, even if they did not have one, because they've been attacked in melee. And their path of retreat. When retreating, the enemy may not end their move within 3 of an enemy model. If there's no space, the model must be removed from play. So you can crossfire people and kill them. And if the unit's broken and has fewer than half its original starting models, it's not just broken, it's shattered. They're just removed from play and considered slain. You flee and keep running. If unit's not broken, it may still fall into confusion. Any unit that suffers more shock results in the morale value will gain a fatigue token, provided they don't have one. So confusion is basically you didn't break, but you're going to get fatigued no matter what because you took a bunch of damage, and if it hits your morale. So if it's less than your morale, you're going to get nothing, and the opponent gets driven back, but otherwise you're going to get a fatigue token for being confused. And then other actions: dig in, take aim, reload, dominate, which we talked about earlier. Army composition. Okay, so for every line infantry unit you take, you can have at least 1 skirmisher, 1 cavalry, or a 2nd skirmisher unit, or an artillery or monster. A commander can also put cultists into their line infantry. These are special upgrades for the unit that you can have 1 of per army. And line infantry is everything from men-at-arms, musketeers, and crossbowmen with alternative weapons. Skirmishers are elite muskets, elite crossbows, footmen, and stalkers. Bombardiers, scattergunners, long gunners, and grenadiers. It's basically so that the weapon type fits whatever's on your model, and they'll have different attributes. Cavalry is light horse, dragoons, cuirassiers, and knights. So everything from light horse all the way up to like a fully armored knight. They're all going to have special attacks like lethal, shock, melee. For their weapons, for their sabers, and then muskets could be like 12-inch range armor piercing, and pistoliers and the cuirassier could be 8-inch range with armor piercing. So you can see here there's defense 3 on these cuirassiers, but they have +1 from their armor. So as long as they're not fighting some armor piercing, they're defense 4. 5 for the knights. And the artilleries, we got cannons, mortars, and scatter cannons, and then monstrosities, we got abominations, which is like large heavy infantry, and then monsters. Dangerous. Units are always at risk of attrition when fighting monstrosities, even if they're outnumbered them 2 to 1. And then monstrosities may not use the dominate action because they won't secure objectives. And then you've got like special rules like very hard to kill. You have to kill them 3 times. Scything claws. In combat, the monster can attack 6 times, but each injury token it has for every 3 points of damage it's taken, it gets -1 attack. It starts to like slow down. And then arcane domination. They're difficult to control. In order to activate them, you must discard a spell dice from your casting table. So you have to like commune with it. And then cultists. These are like the special characters. These would, in Chronicles of the Black Company terms, these would be like the Taken joining one of your units. So you'd have like a demagogue. It's like a banner bearer, a berserker, an apothecary, and a cultist, a bone rattler, a deadeye, a bloat, a remnant, a firebug, or a soothsayer. All of these guys give you special abilities, like the soothsayer. If your armor contains it, you can reroll up to 3 dice from your casting table at the beginning of the game. The martyr, when you select the martyr as a casualty from the enemy shooting or melee attacks, you can negate an additional hit. Or the hoarder, if your force contains a hoarder, you begin with an additional spell component token because you just got extra stuff. And all of these they're a great way to round out your points and put cool character models in your units. You got all of our sorcery stuff. It'll say when you can do it. So different lores, blood, bile. It's like lore of blood. Whenever a friendly unit suffers 3 or more casualties, you gain a blood token to a maximum of 6. You can spend your special tokens basically to boost your spells. And then Hungry Blades. So for instance, lore of blood, cast when you retain the initiative. Your unit can take 2 actions instead of 1, providing one of those actions is a charge. So basically you'd get like a full activation for a 3 there. Lore of Bile, Lore of Bone, Gravedigger. Your unit gains a dig-in token. Additionally, you may spend a bone token to restore D3 lost models. So they let you power up your spells. The Lore of Marrow. Prayer and Hunger. Your units all gain the ability to take the prayer action. Whenever they pray, gain a Marrow token to a max of 6. Additionally, you gain a Marrow token each time one of your units destroys or breaks an enemy unit in melee combat. Like 4 is Miraculous Rebirth. Cast when you activate a unit of line infantry or skirmishers. Restore 1 lost model to the unit, plus 1 additional model for each Marrow token you spend. So you can see that all of your tokens can be spent for bonuses. Then we got some rules for all of our area terrain. And then we got different types of scenarios. So competitive scenarios, these are like the balanced list ones with objectives and terrain. So kind of a mix of AOS and like old fantasy. Then you've got narrative scenarios, like a Last Stand. These are all asymmetrical. Empty the Cairns, Woodland Ambush, a Meat Grinder, or a River Crossing. Monster Mashing. And then campaign play, so like how to do random forces and how to get like abilities and learn skills and stuff. Multiplayer, and then finally a free-for-all Grand Sacrifice. And a cool table for names, because who doesn't want that? Quick ref and we're done. So there we go, Black Iron Sigil. If you were looking for a like rules light mass combat, wow, sort of like company level mass skirmish, I guess, for fantasy, in like the vein of like Saga or Dragon Rampant. This is very much probably up your alley, and because you can customize your forces to your model collection, and Paul's kind of committed to like miniature agnostic games, this is kind of a good one for everyone to have in their back pocket. Even if you just are like bored of mass sort of market games like Warhammer Age of Sigmar, you could probably just use your army and play this right away with very little modification. And yeah, and like I love the theme and the art. It's nice and simple. It's really easy to digest, and I'm probably gonna dig out my Song of Ice and Fire minis to give it a go. So big thanks for Paul sending this along, and for you guys for watching. We'll see you for more GMG reviews. Till then, I'm Ash. Apple Gaming.